Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is episode 8 of the Cybersecurity Brew series, which is a podcast-style webinar series on significant cybersecurity headlines that impact you. There is a link in our attachment section to see older episodes from this series on demand at any time. Everyone here is muted to ensure audio quality, but we welcome you to drop your questions in the questions tab as you think of them, and our speakers will get to them at the end. And that is it from me. So now I will pass things over to your hosts for today, Mike and Jake. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I guess to introduce ourselves, it has been a little while. I will say, Casey, thank you for the question. We've missed you too. That isn't a question though. To get things started, my name is Jake Haldeman, and I'm a product manager here at Logarithm. Oddly enough, I just noticed we misspelled my name. There's no R normally, but hey, I'll roll with it. Today there is. So really excited to be here today. Mike, who are you? What are you doing here?
Who am I? More importantly, please do not try to pronounce my last name. My name is Mike Villavicencio. Fortunately, that has been spelled correctly, but I'm one of the customer solutions engineers for Logarithm, supporting our existing customers and ensuring their continuity and value behind the products that we sell. So,
awesome.
Let's get on.
And for the record, Mike and I used to work together. A long time ago, we worked together in our Logarithm channel sales team, where we'd work with partners. We were kind of the East and the West, shake and bake. And that's when this started, actually, right, Mike? We started doing this webinar when we worked together. We talk all the time. And then over the years, you and I, we kind of took different paths. I'm now working in product management, overseeing some of the development of Logarithm 7, our SIM on-prem solution. And then you're working more directly with customers now. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm going to say right now, like, you've actually helped me with a couple customers recently that we've had to get some challenges overcome. So I've been here for 4 years now. Actually, it'll be 4 years in 12 days. So happy to be here and really excited to do the next webinar here.
Now, Mike, I don't mean to one-up you, but in about 4 days, I'm going to hit an official 8-year mark.
Here we go.
Sorry, I started earlier. It's not my fault. But it's pretty awesome how quickly time flies. I can't believe it's been 4 years that we've been working together. It's been fun times.
Yep.
All right. I guess we should get going. People didn't come here just to hear us bicker and talk back and forth. They want to hear some security topics. So I'll kind of get things going and start off with an item I wanted to discuss a little bit. I called it Snowflake being a snowflake. After that, what are you going to talk to us about, Mike?
Well, obviously, Snowflake is a big topic. A lot of folks use it, but I will be talking about 2 Linux topics here. So 2 and 3 there you see on the screen, they do complement each other because it's important to acknowledge what's going on with this backdoor attack, but also how are you able to mitigate that attack, or how are you able to address that? It's not really solving the problem. It's more of how do you monitor, how do you keep it in check? So that's what I'll be talking about as well.
I like that. And I think sprinkled in here, we're going to talk a little bit about just kind of best practices along the way too. So let me jump into this. Let's start talking about Snowflake being a snowflake. So if you read the news, if you follow headlines, dark reading, whatever, Reddit, they've had these headlines. And I'll admit, it's easy to look at a headline and assume you know what's going on. Because the first time I saw some of these headlines, I saw Snowflake was breached. And I was like, oh boy, this is like, huge customer base, a lot of data compromise. So I started digging into this, and I realized it's a little bit different. So let's set the stage. I realized too, setting the stage isn't really a question, but it's more of a statement. So let's set the stage a little bit. If you don't know what Snowflake is, that's okay. They are what I sold this from their website. They are an AI data cloud. What does that actually mean? Well, they're basically a SaaS provider of elastic and unstructured databases. So that means that organizations can push any type of data into this and use different unattributed fields to map the data, extract information, things like that. It's very powerful, very useful. I mean, underlying in Logarithm SIM is unstructured data. We can go in and say, hey, I want to pull specific metadata out, and we use a very similar type of technology, but obviously Logarithm 7 is on-prem. Snowflake is a SaaS tool. So I know there are some SaaS SIM providers out there that use Snowflake, and there's a lot of big companies out there too. So like I was saying, Snowflake, they do this elastic compute, and then they also sprinkle in some AI because everybody wants AI nowadays. And so, of course, they'll bundle some services together where you can get this really cool, powerful, fast, scalable database. And then, they'll throw in some AI technology in there. Who knows how good it is? I have some biased opinions about AI. I think it's powerful. I think it's helpful. I think it's very immature. I think there's a lot more for it to evolve into before we should really be calling it AI. That's another topic. I guess we did a webinar on AI a little while ago. So yeah, go watch that if you want to see some opinions on AI. All in all, though, Snowflake is a cool concept. I think it's something that some businesses could find great value in. Other businesses might say, that this isn't the right fit, and that's okay too. So who uses Snowflake, Mike? This is one of my questions, and their website answered this very clearly. They have the little banner, it flips through customers, and so I didn't want to name anyone specific, but they have a lot of banks, internet service providers, SaaS solutions, fast food vendors. These are just a couple examples of the type of customers that Snowflake has. So now that we've kind of defined who Snowflake is, what happened? Everyone probably saw this a couple weeks ago. Snowflake was breached. Well, not really. What happened is some of their customers were breached. And I have to say, I was really impressed with the transparency on the Snowflake website about what was going on, because they thought there was a breach. They did an investigation internally. They said, no, we're good. So they brought in 2 security third-party analysts. They brought in CrowdStrike and Mandiant, the extension of Google. And those 2 vendors came in and they did an analysis. They helped confirm Snowflake wasn't breached. Instead, their customer base was. And so now you say, okay, well, what actually happened? Well, Snowflake was starting to roll out and starting to enforce multi-factor authentication. And the customers that got popped weren't enabled yet. From my interpretation, they chose not to enable multi-factor authentication yet. So the customer base was using the tool and kind of doing the easy road. They're trying to get the product up and running, getting data in there, but they didn't follow some of the best practices in terms of security hygiene. They didn't implement multi-factor authentication, which is a big item. That's an easy one to skip out on, and it immediately creates security risks. So let's talk about the aftermath. What actually happened when they started targeting Snowflake accounts and compromised some customers? One of the customers that got hit, and this hits me close to home because I loved going to concerts, but I also hate the Ticketmaster service and fees that they add on, things like that. So Ticketmaster got hit. On the dark web for sale, 1.3 terabytes of Ticketmaster data for sale. Included in that was 560 million people. Personal contact information, PII, credit card data. Not all of it, allegedly. Allegedly, they said some credit card data. But, that's a lot of information, a lot of people that have now had personal information leaked and for sale on the internet. Sadly, that's just another one for the year, right? So far in 2024, we've had tons and tons of data breaches and data leaks. I'll just throw out if if you're ever like, well, have I been impacted by these? Check out tools like Have I Been Pwned? Put in your email addresses, work, personal, friends, family, your cat's email address. See if it's included. Just make sure that you're aware so that you know how to respond properly. Mike, you don't have to do it right now. Do it after the webinar. I just heard your keyboard, so I was like, oh, he must be looking at it right now.
No, I'm pulling up a different topic on Ticketmaster. It's really interesting I always go back to it. Ticketmaster also had a hack that they incorporated towards gridded seats. I believe it was back in the day, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And my question is do you think that Ticketmaster is going to introduce a new fee for this, like a security monitoring fee for every ticket that they sell now? Because of course they got to find a way to make up the money, and the lost faith in customers. So like I said, I love going to concerts, I love shows, but I hate the fees that they add in. Sometimes it almost doubles the price of a ticket. I can only imagine that they're going to use this as an excuse to increase those fees, to add additional resources for security. When really that should be built in, that should be standard and default practices. Yeah. Another customer I wanted to highlight really quick is Santander Bank. Another 30 million customers data leaked, and it's for sale for just $2 million on the dark web. So if you got an extra $2 million of Bitcoin sitting around, Mike, you can go pick up this customer data. I can only imagine what PII is in there, and what type of risk that is. And I don't call out these two businesses as, hey, you guys did something wrong. You're in the wrong. I think anyone could have been hit by this type of an attack. But I think the good side is that just like any SaaS provider, if organizations aren't doing their part to implement best practice security practices, or doing their best to implement best practices of security, it's going to come back to haunt them. And this is a great example of that, where these organizations implemented a Snowflake integration, and they didn't go back and say, now we need to tune it for security. We need to make sure that multi-factor authentication is in place. I imagine there's a level of logging that could be in place, things like that. But they skipped over that. And so now it puts us as customers are at risk, and we're negatively impacted because of the organizations skipping these best practices. Now, today we're talking about Snowflake. If we hit rewind, Mike, rewind is a thing on the VCR. Before we had DVD players, you'd want to rewind. Be kind and rewind, if you recall that. But if we go back a couple of years, I remember AWS had they were accused of being insecure because their S3 buckets. They'd have customers using S3 buckets, and honestly, this stuff comes up all the time even today, where threat researchers will find an insecure S3 bucket that they can just pull data down. And some organizations, they put PII in those buckets. Some organizations just use it for temp files or things like that. But if an organization isn't following best practices, if they're skipping security basics, now they're exposing customer data to the world, to threat actors that can then take that and use it for malicious purposes, turn it around, sell it on the dark web like we're seeing in these situations. All around, it's just kind of a negative experience.
Well, that's a good point to make, Jake. Is it's kind of like a car. You go to the dealership, you buy it brand new, and you're expected to just know how to use it. So naturally, locking it with your fob key, or just locking it remotely, is your responsibility as well. It's not the manufacturer. So with the example you just had about AWS S3 buckets, same concept. You have to know what you're adopting. Once you adopt that technology, you must acknowledge what goes with that. Secure your standards, secure your protocols, make sure you're locking your systems.
I can only imagine somewhere in my car, there's that owner's manual that came with the car. I bet somewhere in there it says you should lock your car when you're not in it, huh? I've never looked, but I can only imagine they probably have some page. It's like, if you don't want your car to get stolen, you should lock it. And we include multiple ways to lock it. So you're right on the money. It's so easy to just run to the store, whether it's, a physical store buying, a car, or even a virtual store buying a SaaS tool. And if we don't take to RTFM, read the manual, we're going to forget or skip over some of those basic security principles. And that's what leaves us exposed. And, we could go and, I'm not a sales guy anymore. You are. So, maybe some people that could go and sell products that's going to help protect organizations in situations like this. Or we could encourage customers to go and say, what are you doing in terms of security basics? Have you implemented multi-factor authentication? Are you getting security logs from these tools? Are you using least privileged access? It's those types of things that sometimes are a pain to set up and implement, but that's what's going to really protect an organization when an incident occurs. If the threat actor compromised a Ticketmaster account that only had limited access to data, that might be 0.3 terabytes of data leaked instead of 1.3 terabytes. All of a sudden, the outcome is drastically different. Now, again, I'm projecting a little bit. I don't know what type of security Ticketmaster or this bank implemented, but I think it's easy to look at the situation and say, if they didn't have multi-factor authentication enabled yet, what else did they forget? And that's what puts organizations in these situations. So, Mike, here's my takeaway from the Snowflake breach. Basics, security basics. Don't go buy a tool. Don't hire new analysts and teams, and don't say we can't trust any SaaS provider and we have to move everything on-prem. Instead, look at your security posture. Review that your implementations of security best practices are there, and keep it simple. You don't need to go and buy another $1 million worth of security software to protect you. If you just need to start enabling multi-factor authentication and making sure that user accounts are disabled when a user leaves the organization, or that strong passwords are leveraged. There's so many basics, and then also the other side of this is user awareness training, right? It's easy to go through and implement these processes and procedures, but if we also don't take time to educate and train the end users, make sure that they know the risk of what happens if they get compromised, the amount of data that they have access to. This is huge. But at the end of the day, that's not $1 million software products to save the day. That's security principles, basics that need to be implemented and followed. What do you think? Any other last thoughts on this one, Mike?
No, you're absolutely right. So I think for the analysts and the security personnel on the phone or on the webinar here, I think it's just really important to just dial into your vendors. We're trying to be the consultants for you, to tell you you have services available to you, but likely for free, just consultation, just like going to a doctor and saying, hey, here are my ailments, here's what I need, here's what I would like to cure. They have solutions for you. So please consult with your vendors. It's really important because, likewise, we do that as well. Sorry, not a sales pitch, but your vendors as well. Like whether you have Snowflake, whether you have Cribble, whether you have CrowdStrike, they likely have services readily available for you.
What are your security elements? How can we help secure you today? I like that.
That's right.
All right, Mike, let's keep things moving along. I don't want to keep everybody here too long today, but I want to make sure we cover everything pretty well. So tell me a little bit about this SSH backdoor situation.
Yeah, this is a long one. So I'm actually gonna keep it this one brief because there's a lot to digest here. So don't expect you to read the saga that's on the screen there, but let me summarize this for you. So our Technica did a great job of digesting exactly what's going on, and this is not new news. It's happened, this was published over a month ago, or maybe under a month ago, but it really discusses the security issue regarding SSH, or secure shell. If you're not familiar with secure shell, it's basically how it encrypts connections between systems. But it's infected over 400,000 Linux servers that span over 15 years, since about 2009.
Wait, Mike, pause. Linux is secure. Hackers don't target Linux. We're okay here, right?
Very secure. Yeah, it's never been hacked. So as someone that has worked at AT&T NOC, I can tell you we have been compromised. At some point, whether it's just regular admin password login or something like that into a modem, they're very vulnerable. So there's no, if it connects to the internet, consider it unsafe. That's generally the gist here. So I think that's pretty obvious for a lot of folks on the call here. But here's the highlights here. So one, I'll break it down into 6 pieces here. So the backdoor discovery. So researchers have discovered a backdoor in SSH software that has been present for a long time. It went undetected for 15 years. This backdoor allowed attackers to gain unauthorized access to Linux systems running that vulnerable version of SSH. 2, it was widespread impacted. The backdoor had infected an estimated 400,000 servers, like I said, but indicating the scale and severity issue is another thing. These servers are really at risk of compromise, leading to potential data breaches beyond belief. Like it could go way beyond, Experian level, like Verizon level, those sorts of things, or even SolarWinds. 3, so the persistence and evolution of this attack, despite the efforts of the vulnerability, the backdoor continues to spread due to persistence in legacy systems. Again, patch your systems, even amongst the most senior security system admins. Additionally, attackers are really, evolving their techniques. Just like any other attacker, they're going to find another way. They're going to say, okay, let's find the TCP stack. Which layer can I exploit? Which layer can I get into my into the system? And then number 4, the attack vector. It did happen. The backdoor exploits a weakness in the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. So I don't expect most of you to know what that means. It's an encryption standard inside of SSH. But attackers can leverage that vulnerability to inject malicious code, so they can do whatever they want after they get past that exchange.
Mike, bad joke. I thought that was a football trophy.
I know you're referencing there, but that's not the same one. So the mitigation measures, again, patching. Just because it's a large spread attack, please update your systems. If you're using Linux, and I promise you I'm going to get to the part where I explain how, okay, great, Mike.
I trust you. Keep going.
How do I protect myself? I'll get there. I'm almost done here. So monitoring and auditing your servers for suspicious activities really can help you identify and respond to those potential security breaches. And then finally, lessons learned out of all that. The discovery of this long-standing backdoor underscores the importance of regular security audits, vulnerability assessments, proactive measures. This even goes to tabletop exercises. It really does go there. So your C-levels should be concerned about it. Your executives should be concerned about it. It's a widespread issue. So let me go back to another topic, is for the security analysts on this webinar, really highlights the need and criticality to continuously monitor, patch, and look for those evolving threats and vulnerabilities. So It really emphasizes the collaboration between researchers, vendors, even your own cybersecurity community. So anyone you can reach out to, if it's on Reddit, if it's on social media, please, they probably have an answer for you. So yeah, and what are your thoughts on that, Jake?
Mike, this is a really fascinating topic because, one of your big highlights or takeaways in this is patching, right? You make sure your systems are up to date. But one of my other thoughts is, you remember the SolarWinds breach? That was a big supply chain level compromise. That we're kind of seeing the same challenge at the operating system level now. I've heard multiple times in the last year and a half about Microsoft being breached. Scenarios like this where Linux developers are being breached, and the downstream impact that has. And so, it's really easy for us to say, oh, we only use Windows because it's closed source, it's safer. No, it's not. Hackers have gotten that code. Who knows what they've done with it? Who knows what type of exploits they have? Patching is critical, but it's not going to save us in every situation. Same with Linux. You got to patch. You got to stay up to date. I don't care if you have that system uptime of 700 days or you have that critical application. You don't know what's going to happen when you do a patch. You got to do it. Otherwise, you're going to leave your organization exposed. And yeah.
Let me jump in there. Yeah, and let me say this is I've had customers myself, because I take care of our existing customer base. I've told them, please update to this version, and they've successfully thwarted threats actively. Like it's literally, it does. Please do yourself a favor. It absolutely does work, and it's not unknown science, right? This is obvious stuff, but it's the importance around it. It's like, okay, well, I got an update from my iPhone, right? Like if I have my iPhone, I need to update that all the time because there's security threats that are actively occurring. Same thing with any other system. It's really that simple. I think we talked about this many times, Jake, but thank you, Tony. See your comment in the questions. Love the format. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, Tony, thank you for that. And Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to shift gears just for 1 second. Just talking to the people that are joining us, we know that this is a very one-sided presentation tool. So please use that question and answer section. If you want to send a comment, if you want to say, I've seen this, or I've been through this, or any type of feedback or experience, we'd love to have some more interaction. We know you can't come on camera, you can't come on voice with us or anything, but feel free to use that Q&A section to interact with us. If you have a good joke, if you have some insight about the items we're talking about, or if you have general questions you want us to talk about, if you want us to talk about a random new feature in Logarithm 7 or Axon, we're happy to deviate a little bit and talk about those things. So feel free to jump in and make this more interactive with us. Me and Mike, we're happy to talk with each other. We have a good time when we go through these things, but we'd love to have that interaction with you guys as well. So just want to use this as a quick opportunity to say, hey, feel free to come off mic and submit a question or a comment, just so we know we're not alone, but also so that we can interact a little bit with you guys. Just like Casey and Tony, neither of those were questions, but we sure do love seeing things come into the user interface here so that we can participate with you guys as well.
Much love.
Much love. All right, Mike, are we ready to go to the last topic here that you wanted to address, or is there a little bit more on the SSH backdoor?
Yeah, I don't know why it's on the Q&A slide, but
I did that just to mix things up a little bit, keep us all on our toes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure you did. So I explained, okay, yes, that's a huge issue. 400,000 Linux servers, huge problem, right? So if you've heard of sysinternals by Microsoft, there's SysMon for Linux as well. So our friends at Red Canary did a great job of providing a matrix of different use cases, but also there's YAML files. If you're not familiar with YAML files, they're your configurations to immediately deploy and expose any vulnerable systems. So analyzing processes, user activity, access, read write permissions, stuff like that. It's really verbose in reporting into your platform.
So really quick, Mike,
yeah.
Just for those that are new to SysMon, this is a tool from Microsoft, and you can run it on Windows or Linux, and it's going to do detailed system analysis logging. Is that kind of the general thing? I know you just talked about this YAML file that provides specifics of what it's going to do, but like, what's the high level view of SysMon? It's basically a tool that gets OS level insight on what's going on, or what?
Yeah, exactly. So instead of just logging just regular syslog data, so let's say, for example, authentication login, authentication log off, unauthorized login, stuff like that. Those are the basics. This is going to give you how long was that process run, when did it end, what was the read write permissions, what did they actually write to a file. Very verbose stuff. So it is getting very into the weeds. But as you can see from the use cases there, it gives you really great insight into exactly what users are doing and potential issues or security incidents.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, because I've used SysMon a little bit, and Logarithm, we have a tool we call SysMon too, our system monitor agent. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this SysMon versus Logarithm SysMon, things like that. So. All right, so let's back up just a little bit. What were you saying Atomic Red Canary has that was helpful?
Yeah, that's their GitHub page. So they have a matrix, and we'll provide this link later on. But there's a matrix that they provided. They did a great job. We have integrations with Red Canary. They're an MDR, by the way, or a managed detection response solution. So we are good friends with them, and I thought I'd share that link because it's a great resource if you want to incorporate that into your environment. But that is for your Linux systems. It's all free. Obviously, it's open source, GitHub. So any other questions on that, Jake?
No, just Tony was right in line with me. He said, yeah, don't get this confused with Logarithm System Monitor. So right on the money there. I think the cool thing with this is that Microsoft produced this tool, and it's very helpful. It gets us into the weeds, like you said. But then Logarithm, we have great integrations with SysMon, and then there's companies like Red Canary who help do testing with this. So if you want to make sure that you're capturing the right things, because one of the challenges with SysMon is that you have to provide a config file, like you were talking about. And if you don't specify the right fields in that config file, it might not catch the actual activity that we're looking for. So
let me jump in there. So caution for the analysts and the people who are like, hey, I could probably use that. That sounds great. Also, those YAML files or those XML files for the configuration for what you're seeing on the screen here for your SysMon, Linux, or even Windows, if it's not encrypted, if you do not protect that file, it can be manipulated. So yes, there's still a potential vulnerability there behind it. Even Microsoft calls it out. Linux will call it out. Red Hat Linux will call it out. So you must be vigilant and watch everything. It really is that. But this is critical for large environments.
I will say, Mike, use cases of using a SIM is that syslog or SysMon will capture the activity of that file being monitored, sending it into a SIM so that you can then get alerted on it. So the hope is that if a threat actor actually does access that file, that there's still monitoring in place that notifies that or catches that. And then I would encourage customers that deploy this to have some sort of protection in place that kind of watches these config files. When I do proof of concepts, a web server, you want to make sure that the config files for that web server is monitored by a SIM or file integrity monitoring, so that when it's updated and whether it's an authorized update or not. So this would be another great use case for that, to say, hey, make sure that the configuration of your security or logging tools is monitored so that you can catch that when a threat actor changes it, or that intern comes in and turns it off because it was giving them a headache or something. So always important to pay attention to that.
Likewise, yeah, it's also important because you can monitor registry for Windows. So, for example, Windows registry entries, you can monitor those. So, even the fact if someone changes or modifies anything in there, as long as you have a notification, hey, this happened, even if it's like just a blip of a moment, be vigilant about that as well. I mean, it really is that simple. Like, just monitor your critical assets. And I hate to say that because it's the common theme, but it really is that. You have to, look at everything that's going on in your environment. But, I have customers who are looking at those things right now, and it really does help. They've actually stopped the adversaries in their tracks. They've used Logarithm and Carbon Black to stop a threat. Less than a week.
That's huge. So really quick, kind of making sure we're talking full circle here. Deploy SysMon for Linux, ingest it into your SIM, and then Red Canary, the atomic red team from Red Canary, is a way to validate or test what we've actually implemented. Is that right? Is that kind of the workflow we're proposing here, Mike?
Yeah. They're the team that's behind providing that matrix, behind giving the tools and the files necessary to implement SysMon for Linux specifically in this case. But they also have a ton of TTPs or tactics, techniques, and procedures that are aligned to all the different common attacks known behind attackers. So definitely check it out. It's a great link.
Yeah, Casey actually mentioned, thank you for this, that Red Canary does have a Slack channel. So if you go through and do the implementation on this and you're doing testing and having an issue, there is a Slack channel for Atomic Red Team that you can jump into, and a very active community out there. I think that's the cool thing with security is that we're all students and we're all experts in different areas. And so, you can go and talk to these different companies and the users of these tools to work together to build a whole ecosystem. You don't have to just rely on one vendor, which to me is scary to say, I'm only using Microsoft for all my security needs. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. And so you'll be able to spread that around saying, hey, we're using some Microsoft technologies. We're using some Logarithm technologies. Hey, perfect. That's us. And Red Canary, their Atomic Red Team stuff, like when you start piecemealing things together, that gives you a really healthy ecosystem and a good checks and balances. So I appreciate you calling that out, Casey. I was not aware that they had a Slack channel. That's good to know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Thanks, Casey.
Well, Mike, so what your takeaway is, Linux has compromises and backdoors, so we need to use tools like SysMon. This isn't the only solution, but a solution to help. And then with that, you want to get that centralized visibility, right? So obviously, we're a security vendor. We're going to say we should send this into Logarithm SIM or Logarithm Axon, so that the security team has that full visibility of what's going on. What else can we do to protect organizations? What else is there?
Well, I mean, there's a multitude of different solutions out there. I mean,
I think your eyes lit up. It's like, ooh, a sales pitch. No.
No, I was actually going to say there's your EDRs. There's your, I mean, I don't want to go with XDR. That's a buzzword that is kind of going around quite a bit. But look, ultimately, you need a SIM to collect data. It doesn't have to be logarithm. Collecting log data is important. Yes, there are ways that the adversary can, send your logs to a null interface or null
endpoint, or just kind of cancel them out, right?
Right, they're just going to eliminate those logs, right? But ultimately, it's really, those are advanced techniques. So the adversary is usually not going to take the chances of attacking you if you have the highest priorities and highest security standards, or even monitoring at that. So with SysMon for Linux, I would say yes, your systems are absolutely, vulnerable to these threats right now. So I don't know what else you have to say about that, Jake.
Yeah, I think it's very fair. End of the day, security is never going to be a one-stop destination. There's going to be a lot of stops along the way to get an organization in its proper security posture. It's easy to say, we bought a SIM, we're done. Nope, not quite. Is every server being logged? Is every user configured? Are alerts and detections configured properly? It's a never-ending task. And using tools like that Atomic Red team from Red Canary, it's a great way to help test and catch the holes so that you can go back and reiterate through it and make those improvements. I think most organizations are starting to catch on, and hopefully everybody on this webinar is catching on, because if you've listened to our old webinars, you're going to notice we have a lot of repeated solutions here of security basics, test, rinse, and repeat. These aren't revolutionary concepts, we know, but it's easy to get in the mindset of, I need to go buy a new product to secure myself. Reality is that you just need to go through and retune what you have, make sure that the basics are being implemented, and iterate through there. If you don't have the funding for a pen test, go grab a tool like Atomic Red Team and see what happens. Logarithm, we have a tool for the logarithm sim called Logarithm Echo. And, it's an easy way to test your sim to see how the alerting and detection is. If we do a malware attack, does the sim alert you on it? Does your SOC see it and respond in a timely manner? Testing that, being aware of where your team's weaknesses are so that you can make ways to improve it, I think that's critical. End of the day, there's no silver bullet that's going to protect you from every threat that's out there. But if you take time to sharpen your axe, make sure that the basics are covered, you're going to be a lot better positioned than a lot of the other companies out there. You're going to be a little bit harder. That makes an attacker say, maybe it's not worth my time. That's the hope, right? Is that they're just going to say, this is a little bit harder than I thought. Let's move on. They don't have an old version of Linux sitting out there that I can compromise. Let's move on to the harder stuff or an easier target without having to do harder work.
I know we're coming up on time here, but I have a use case that came from an existing customer of ours in the identity management space that was able to thwart attacks through their Cisco ASA firewalls, and they're globally distributed. So using just a block list is immensely powerful. They're still doing it. They're still trying to attack them, but that's how simple it is. Just put a block list in there, and they're still trying to knock on the door, but those are simple techniques.
I love that. No, simple techniques are what most attackers are using. You've heard the term script kiddie, right? They're just using free tools on the internet and just trying to find the people that haven't taken the time to patch, monitor, and respond to incidents. So, end of the day, we all have to be diligent on this. I know it's easy for me as a product manager, Mike as a sales guy, to come and say, patch, monitor, detect. But the reality is that my goal is to make it so our SIM helps with that, making your job easier. Mike's there to help show the value, so when customers are looking for that, they can see it, so that when you are in this seat, that you have a safe avenue to go down and trusted resources that you can leverage. So, Mike, I put on the thank you slide. I just want to make sure everybody had time to write down these URLs if they don't know where YouTube is or things like that. But, I had a great time today. Mike, I always love our time working together, and really happy that, we had Casey and Tony giving us some feedback and insights. It's fun to get going again on the webinar. I know we've had some marketing people in the organization that I'm not saying drop the ball, but, it got us delayed. But it's really fun to be back. We're really excited to have another series in the books pretty soon. So keep us posted. But Mike, any last comments before we pass it back over to Delaney?
No, thank you all for joining. For those of you who are still live, who are able to join, it's been a long time, so really appreciate you showing up and showing support.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you both so much. Just hopping in here for one more minute to give a few more updates. Yeah, thank you again so much for your presentation. As you guys mentioned, I am happy that we're back with these episodes. And for anyone who's still live right now, keep your eyes peeled for our next episode. Registration will be open soon, and that's happening later this summer. And then just be sure to check out the attachments section. We have a bunch of things linked there for you below. We have our upcoming quarterly launch webinars happening in July. We have our upcoming Rhythm World customer event in October. And we also have linked our resource center and our blog there for you as well. And you can reach out to info@logarithm.com if you do think of any other questions related to any of the content that Jake and Mike talked through today or anything else. And I do see one question. Can we replay this after this is over? Yes, this will be available. As soon as we close this out, the replay will go live, and you'll also receive it in a follow-up. So that is it from me. Thank you both again so much, and thank you everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Take care.